Nicolas, thank you very much, and Andrea. So let's start with this. Thank you for being here. I'm Yomaira Angélica Reño Contreras, teacher and researcher at Universidad Santo Tomás in Villavicencio, and also the academic editor of this book. I would like to express my gratitude for you being here and attending this invitation to join us in order to present this book that has been a great effort for more than 1 year. So based on the agenda, we will have first the opening words by our leader, Andrea Laudit Granados Davila. Then I would like to make a book outline and also take some time to say thank you to all the people who were involved during this process. And then the co-authors will have 5 minutes to share some ideas about her chapters. Then at the end, we will have a final talk and some questions from the audience, and this section will be conducted by Professor Nicolás Gámez from Universidad Santo Tomás. So during the whole presentation, the attendees will have the opportunity to make questions and comments. Please use the chat tool to do so. Again, thank you very much for being here, and let's listen to Andrea Granados.
Thank you very much, Professor Yomaira. I apologize because my office is having some issues, so I don't have the camera right now. But I'm very happy for being here, and I have a few words for you. Well, I introduce myself again. I'm the current coordinator of the Language Institute. And I have nothing but gratitude today, as Professor Yomaira said as well. I would like to thank the authors, Araceli, Viviana, Daisy, Marien, Carolina, Alba, Jenny, and my friend Yomaira for being here today and for giving us the opportunity to get to know new experiences taking place in the classroom. Also for letting us know that even though some circumstances have driven us apart, we are not alone, and that many, just like us, work after hours and fall asleep thinking of new forms to improve what we do. In second place, I would like to thank all of you all who have joined us today for making a little room in your agenda. I know it's kind of hard, since it means we care and that we all think a better education is still possible. I really consider this event as an opportunity to enhance a new network of preoccupied teachers and researchers coming from places as diverse and unique as we are. Finally, I would like to thank also my predecessor, Alexander Avellaneda, for his support in this initiative as a colleague and as a friend. And I would like to quote his words. He said in the book that I am a firm believer of the power of reading to change lives. And this is precisely why this book has the potential to shift the lives of many. And personally, I could not agree more with him. So without further ado, Professor Yomaira and my dear authors, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. So the next step in our agenda is a brief outline of the book, but instead of making an outline, I would like to say thank you to everyone. So I'm going to read some words I have already prepared for this because I don't want to forget anyone was involved in this presentation and also in this editorial project. So first, I am grateful to God because he was with me all along the process. And then I would like to say thank you to Alexander Avellaneda as my former boss. He was the first person who supported this idea and told me, go ahead. Then to Araceli, Claudia, Lorena, Alba, Mariana, Carolina, and Marian. You were so patient as it took more than 1 year to get the final document. To Maria Carolina Suarez and all the members of the editorial committee at USTA Villavicencio, to Jorge Ramirez, who is the coordinator of the Research and Innovation Office at Universidad Santo Tomás. I am grateful to the team of peer reviewers, and I would like to share their names here. Susana Ibáñez, María Fernanda Jaime, Jonathan Huertas, Eliana Edith Roberto, María Rodríguez Cerezales, Edwin Londoño, and Freddy Salamanca. Also, I would like to say thank you to Henry Bermudez and Angelica Torres, because they provided 2 marvelous quotations on their own about teaching English as a foreign language. To Lina Benito, who designed the advertising pieces, and Andrea Granados, who supported the idea of making this online event. Finally, I would like to say that this book comprises 8 different chapters. 5 are research papers, 2 correspond to reflected articles, and at the end, we have 1 lesson plan. So I hope you enjoy this event, and once again, thank you very much for being here.
So, shall I start?
I guess.
Yes, okay. I didn't know. Okay, yes. Thank you. Thank you. First, I want to thank Yomaira for the invitation, for the encouragement, and also for the patience. It was a very nice, I really enjoyed all the process, honestly, and I am very happy to be here. I'm meeting some people finally, like Daisy. We have been in touch, but we haven't met like talking. So I am really happy to be here. Well, okay. I want to talk about my chapter because I have a few minutes. Can we go to the other slide, please? And the name of my chapter is Perceptions of Mexican EFL Teachers Towards Students' Digital Literacy and Autonomy in 2020. And what is the background? Well, the background is that I started in those days I started reading Facebook posts or some other posts from students. They were all complaining about the situation, and they were complaining about their classes, about everything that was happening. And of course, we have to remember that that was emergency remote teaching, which was the name given to this situation because we were not prepared to teach online. So it was emergency remote teaching. And as a teacher, I wanted my students to be autonomous, to advance, to learn from their places. But unfortunately, it was not happening. Yes, it was so interesting for me to know what was happening because we all have heard that these digital natives and that students are, or young people are very good at managing their devices. So what was happening? And here I work at a big public university in Mexico. This is one of the buildings. This is where students get together. So this was a case study because I wanted to reflect what was happening, but from the perspective of teachers, as I said. I was listening a lot from students, but I was not listening from teachers. The context was a bachelor's degree and it was called Licenciatura en Enseñanza de Inglés. And the participants were teachers from this major. Yes. Okay. Can we continue? So I gave these teachers a questionnaire asking them mainly on their perceptions, on the level of engagement they were having from their students. And the engagement was ranged from 30% to 95%. There was a big difference, yes. The same as me, that the other teachers mentioned that lay learners were not autonomous, and that they could use technology for entertainment, for communication, but not to learn, not to study. We had teachers, we had to help them learning about platforms, about teaching or learning applications. So I think that this was a myth, the digital literacy for learning, for teaching. Yes. And some of the activities, some of the actions that teachers mentioned were like to foster autonomy. They asked students to share their experiences, to that teachers could help them in their self-management, time management. Because once the students were at home, they could not manage their own time, studying, being online, doing homework, studying on their own, etc. Also, teachers mentioned that it was important to ask learners to solve their own problems and probably sharing these solutions with the other people. Challenging students, some of them were very comfortable at home. Yeah, some of them were on their sofas, even on their beds, having their lessons. So teachers mentioned that it was important to challenge students even studying in this modality. But also something very interesting were saying that teachers felt lost in the first months. So they mentioned, how can I expect my students to be autonomous if I don't know what to do? Well, these are some of the results. I invite you to read the whole book, and I congratulate all my friends, the people here who also author other chapters, because I have read some and really they are really interesting. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
So I think I have to continue, right? We are all expecting what to do.
Yes. You're the next.
And yeah, I think it's part of the virtual environment that we are today. Well, as Araceli said, for me, this is a great honor, and I feel very happy to be here, not just sharing with you my findings, but also sharing with amazing colleagues and women that have been an important inspiration for all my process as a professional, as a woman, as an academic. So if we can continue to the next slide, we can start talking about my research. And first, as you can notice, the title is regarding the golden duo. For me, that is important. Like this work together between ICTs and teachers. And this scenario is the university teachers. And well, as you can see, I am highlighting the ICTs field teachers. If you have listened recently, reggaeton, electronic music, different kind of collaborations in today's world are using this term, field, because it's more like a cooperation between the both parts instead of just giving an important role for one of them. And why I started this research, that it began before the pandemic. I was thinking about how are teachers introducing ICTs in their teaching processes. So it is not about the COVID, it is about our normal process in our classes and in our professional development. And the contest was a qualitative analysis using the grounded theory that, we need to use this kind of methodologies because it helps us to understand, interpret, organize the data in a way that we can lead toward theory emerging in data. Because we used to have data, and sometimes we are just doing the statistics, the analytics, and we need to go beyond these numbers and beyond these results about what is happening in for real in these contexts and situations. So I have 95 teachers from 4 different universities, all of them here in Villavicencio. And one of them was, of course, Santo Tomás University, Universidad de los Llanos, Uniminuto, and finally, Universidad Piloto de Colombia. And well, regarding this sample, we have some profiles about the teachers in the scenario of COVID-19. And I was asking them about the digital literacy and how they are connecting the ICTs, their classes, and what are the perceptions, because we suddenly starting to teach in a virtual environment without any knowledge before, apart from what we've been doing with different LMS or some different video calls. And here, there are some important findings that I have to highlight with you. And in this discussion, we can connect these ideas. First of all, one of the biggest questions throughout the process was, well, we are using ICTs, we are introducing new methodologies, and we have to do it. We cannot avoid it. So are we really innovating in education, or are we just digitizing traditional teaching? Because the fantasy of education have been the ICTs. Technology solves any problems, and it is not like that. The most important part for education introducing ICTs are teachers and what they are doing with technology. Their ideas, their forms to use all these digital tools that we have nowadays. So the panacea in education for me is and is going to be all the time teachers. And I have a kind of glossary because it started to come up some words and ideas between all these 95 teachers, and many of them were concerned about the digital divide. So when we are talking about teaching and ICTs, it is not just about content. We are also helping students and also all of us to close different gaps as digital gaps. And also, it is appearing the digital gender divide that is important too. Emotions, intuition, we are all change makers, and our students are change makers too. So technology are improving lives in many different ways. So how are teachings using technology, not just for content, but for going beyond the scenario of the classroom? And of course, how might we consider to create new student-centered classroom scenarios and also human-centered learning designs? Can we go to the next one, please? And all of this is important because some of the most important findings to highlight are these. First of all, what are women teachers teaching in today's world? 95 teachers, and 65 of them are female teachers. For me, that is an important number that I can avoid, because what are women teaching in today's world, and how are they doing it in a world that is asking and claiming for a gender equality, education, and opportunities? 80 of the 95 teachers had never worked in virtual environments. It was before, I know, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, but nowadays this is an important number too, because it is not just about connecting and teach, it is about look and feel. How are our students feeling us through these screens? And 100% of them, they didn't know about the Common Digital Competence Framework for teachers. And this is a question for all of us. Do we know about it? It is something that appears in 2014 and then was transforming in 2017. And nowadays, because of the environment we are working for, this is something important that we need to know. And there are many ideas and types of professional development online that we can include if we want to have the digital competences for teachers that we need. So thank you so much. This is all for now because we have so little time and many ideas to share. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you for coming, joining us today. I'll keep this presentation brief since we have a specific time, as my other colleague mentioned previously. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, my contribution in this book was about Kahoot and quizzes, seen as alternatives using a smartphone for TEFL classrooms. So I want to start with this phrase that said learners as active makers and shapers of their own learning. I really find interesting this postulate because the teacher has been usually or traditionally seen as the single actor and center of the teaching learning process. However, this approach, as my colleagues also mentioned previously, has changed over time. And it's also thanks to the influence and integration of new technologies. And of course, this role of students and teachers has evolved. And of course, in this process, students could turn to mobile devices. And that's the idea of this project. Why mobile devices? Because of the qualities. The smartphone, it has basic functions, but some technical characteristics of a computer, that's it. And of course, this mobility and the battery performance that we usually have known in computers, and also the physical stuff itself. You can move from one place to another. So in this context, the objective of this research, we wanted to define how the use of this smartphone, of this device, and also of these two apps, Kahoot and Quizzes, influence this teaching learning process. Okay, so we next that's it. I mean the next info. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we have used a descriptive design and we have worked with young adults learners at Universidad de Cuenca here in Ecuador. In Cuenca, in the south of the Ecuador, those participants who were in A2 level in that time that we collect data. And we have organized this process like in 3 different phases, okay? The first one was we collect information related with the device itself, with the characteristics of the smartphones. And you can see that, and we have applied questionnaire, this questionnaire that you can see here, the name and slide. And we saw that that our students, okay, have different type of devices. Let's move to the next slide, please. I want to show you this information. That's it. Thank you very much. So there we have the phase 1. That's it. Here we realize, and you can see that more than 70% of the students use the smartphone, okay, like from 2 to 3 hours a day, but with academic purposes. And more than the half of them had advanced model smartphones. So this situation led them to use the smartphone with a purpose that we have stated at the very beginning. In phase 2, okay, which was the apps innovation, here what we did, and I think it's like the most important part, in my opinion, At the end of the week, okay, in their last unit session, my students, my participants had from 15 to 20 minutes to complete a Kahoot or quizzes activity in order to practice English, grammar, and vocabulary. So the focus was the use of language. To do so, they used their smartphone. And it was related, as I told you, to the topic that we have studied previously in the previous week. And it had about 15 exercises, okay, on average. What is this time setting that I mentioned here, options? I refer that a purpose, you know, in Kahoot and quizzes, you have the chance to set a time like 30 seconds, 4 seconds, but I decided to move to this longer time setting. Why? Because I want to benefit my students. And so I mean that I didn't want them to feel pressure to finish the activity as soon as possible. The idea here was give them the opportunity to analyze what they have learned in the previous weeks. Also reflect on what you are doing. So I set that seed from 1 to 2 minutes each exercise, okay? And of course, we had two approaches. The first one was if I organized groups with participants and they give each other feedback. And the second approach was like a general feedback with everybody. Okay, in the third phase, I applied a qualitative questionnaire in which I asked them to their reflection experiences in this process. As you can see, 11% of them have never used Kahoot and quizzes with academic purposes or for learning a foreign language. And most of them gave me positive feedback. I had and I collect some interesting ideas, comments, opinions. You can read them in the book. I don't want to take more time. Next info, please. That's it. So what are some final ideas? Okay, students were not familiar, as I mentioned, with Kahoot and quizzes. They have never used it with academic purposes or for learning a foreign language. Okay, they also said that it was interesting. And what we have discovered is that his smartphone should be an ally in teaching language as a foreign language, and of course in a public university. Sometimes we think that in the public university, our students have no access to these devices. Yes, they did in that time. And even if they didn't have like these exhaustive capabilities, they were able to participate in this process. Also, they have access to internet service on campus, so it was kind of easy to work on that. Teachers should implement it, definitely. I would say yes, because they effectively influence the teaching learning assessment, in this case, formative assessment process in university students. It allowed them not only obtain good or better grades, but I think it helped them to feel more confident because they have been learning a lot of things and they want to challenge themselves to analyze what they have learned and what they have to improve. Okay, so they can analyze about their own mistakes through the process of studying, in this case, grammar and vocabulary. That's it. So thank you very much. Let's continue with the next colleague. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daisy, for that smooth transition. And thank you for sharing to the three authors that have already talked. So, well, first of all, I want to thank Jomaira for the invitation to participate in this publication. Just like Araceli mentioned, I enjoyed the process immensely, and I appreciate, Jomaira, the patience that you had with me, especially during the whole process. Mine is one of the reflective articles, and I would like to start talking about it, not so much because I want you to read it, but definitely I want us to have a little bit of a reflection in this short time that I have. I think I have just shortened the time with my introduction, so I'm going to put it to 4 minutes. So can we move to the next slide, please? So the pandemic did teach us a lot of lessons, and one of the lessons that it taught us was that technology is here to stay. We people who have been crazy talking about technology for the past 10 years, we were the lone wolves in our institutions. We were crazy, like technology will be great. Let's flip our classes. Let's do this. And everyone's like, yeah. Okay, we'll do it. But then 2020 struck, and we received calls by many people saying, hey, you had been talking about this flip learning thing. Can you train my teachers on that? Or can you help us with that hyperduct thing you mentioned? Right, 2020 taught us that actually technology was a great catalyst for whatever we wanted to do, and that we need to leverage that technology in order to enhance our pedagogy and to make our students better learners. That's actually what we do, everything we do. So that was one thing. And the second thing that the pandemic taught us was the importance of mental health. We realized that, as Araceli pointed out, students were taking classes under the covers. They were isolated in their houses. They were experiencing all kinds of isolation, even suicidal ideation. We had so much going on in students' mental health that definitely, I think, and I'm going to be a little ambitious with this, what I'm going to say, but my article, my chapter tackles both these issues. Why? Because I've grown interested in the past years in flipped learning. I've been doing this work for over 10 years. I don't even know how many years. And recently, during the pandemic, and because of the situation of a particular student, I became interested in positive education. I'm not a psychologist, I'm an educator, and definitely I'm not going to solve psychological problems, but I did study a master's on positive education just to build bridges between what I do in my language classroom and my students' personal lives, and helping them navigate all of what is going on in their heads. So my chapter, it's about hyperdocs for language teaching, building, I would like to go back to the past slide, sorry. Thank you. Hyperdocs for language teaching, building autonomy in learners while recognizing their humanness. So I know it's quite a mouthful, but definitely I unpack it in the chapter that I invite you to read again. And I wanted to just share with you this definition that I came up with, during the pandemic. Because yes, flipped learning has been around, but then I realized that flipped learning is a compassionate teaching methodology in which students are placed at the center of the learning process, and teachers are architects of authentic, meaningful, and intentional learning experiences inside and outside of the classroom. So we are not assigners of tasks, we are designers. That's why we're architects, because we construct with our students. And our students are at the center of the learning process, or they should be, not mere repetitors of what we want to teach them. And so the invitation in my article, it's a reflective article, it's to think of hyperdocs as a tool to make this possible, to materialize all these philosophical ideas into practice in the language classroom. We can move to the next one now, please. So in the article, I talk about what hyperdocs are. I actually have a link to one of the hyperdocs that you can copy. And I share some of the insights that my students have had. I implemented hyperdocs in an upper intermediate English class at Institución Universitaria Colomboamericana Única, where I used to work. I don't work there anymore. And the article was based on that experience. But definitely, this is an invitation for all teachers who use any technology to think about hyperdocs as a strategy for you to build that lesson. The time is up in my end. So to build that lesson in order to include both technology purposefully and your students' mental health. Mine is about mindfulness, about being present. So I definitely invite you to read the chapter and to take a look at that hyperdoc and make your own copy. Thank you so much.
Good morning, dear colleagues. First, I want to thank all the people involved in this project, especially Professor Jomari. Next slide, please. Thank you. Today, I am going to talk about critical thinking in language teaching, and I'm going to focus on how to empower teachers and learners. This is a reflection, and it is divided into 3 parts. The first part is a theoretical contextualization, then some insights derived from my own teaching experience, and finally, some suggestions to foster critical thinking in the language classroom. I'm going to start with the theoretical conceptualization. So I am going to start with the current state of language teaching. Nowadays, a post-method perspective states that the teaching practices are not limited by procedures established by methods, but they are reflected and this reflection results on the construction of the teacher's knowledge. In order to construct this kind of knowledge, it is necessary to follow a reflective approach to teaching. Richards and Lockhart express that reflective teaching involves a rigorous process of examination, collection of data, assessment, and improvement of the teaching practice. In this way, teachers become aware of their practices, and this is the first step to develop critical thinking, because we need to be conscious on how our thinking works. Now, I am going to continue with the insights that I have reached from my own teaching experience. Teachers should be consistent on the definitions of language, learning, and teaching. They should be coherent and congruent. For these reasons, I consider language as an ideology that serves to empower learners to participate in the globalized world, but using a foreign language of foreign or second language. But at the same time, it is important to point out that the learner's identity should be recognized as well his native language or his context. Therefore, in this same line, I follow a learner-centered approach to teaching, in which I identify and incorporate the learner's needs, wants, and interests into my teaching practice. I also encourage my students to develop autonomy. I explicitly teach learning strategies, and learners use them to become capable of applying different strategies according to the situation. Finally, I am going to make some suggestions for you teachers, colleagues, and student teachers that I hope that are here today to foster critical thinking in the language classroom. The reflection of the teaching process, the reflection of the teaching practices lead to taking better curriculum decisions that respond to the educational needs of students. We need to give them, students, a voice and empower them to be critical with the language input they process. They should be able to participate in social political actions using the target language. Reflecting upon the language they process and how and when to create and how and when to use creates a habit to question and decide what to believe. And this is an ability of critical thinking. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alba.
Everyone. Hold on a second, please. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Hi, Mariana. Yes, nice to hear you again.
Yes, hey, Daisy. So it's for me a pleasure to be here with you to meet all the participants in this project. Special thanks to the Professor Jomaira for her encouragement for writing and to be part of this absolutely magnificent project. So please, can you change to the next slide? Great, thanks. Well, so what was my contribution to the book? As you see in the title, the name of the chapter is I Dare You to Accept the Vocabulary Challenge. Okay, so what I wanted to do was to put in the paper the systematization of my idea of pedagogical experience that I have to expand mainly the vocabulary skills and also to reinforce effective communication skills in students, in this case, upper intermediate level university students in their professional field. So how did this idea emerge? In this case, this idea was born due to the need for thinking, adapting, and applying different strategies and methodologies for a student to learn vocabulary in a meaningful way. So what I observed when I got this group of students was that they were in a vicious circle of learning plain vocabulary, vocabulary with no context, and it's important in kind of vocabulary that they wanted to learn vocabulary related to their career because they were in the seventh semester. In this case, they were law students. They wanted to learn vocabulary regarding their field, that in this case was all regarding the legal part. And so an idea came to my mind and say, okay, let's do a challenge. I wanted to challenge my students to learn vocabulary in a fun way, in a meaningful way, and that they can and that they could apply this vocabulary to their professional field. And also, it was a long-term learning because they were going to consolidate this vocabulary. So this strategy was adapted also due to the pandemic because in previous semesters, I worked kind of the first steps of this project, but then the pandemic came. So I have to adapt all my ideas, all what I have to, well, I mean, in the plan for this course in a virtual way. So I use different websites as Fall Everywhere, Word Art, ISL Collective, ESL Library that is specific for law, YouTube, many resources that we can find in internet. So I adapt material and I also create that for this group of students. Can you please click on the slide? Thanks. Right, so as you see here, this project was developed during 6 stages or 6 phases. In these 6 phases, the students worked on the different activities regarding all the language skills. Activities regarding reading, listening, speaking, writing, and of course, vocabulary that was the basis of this project. And at the end, as you see there, they had to complete the vocabulary challenge because in that last phase, they had to present not only the words, but also that they can show that they could use that list of vocabulary that we work on for communicative purposes. In this case, they presented an interview, more like complex activities. That was kind of the development of the phases. Can you please move to the next one? Next slide, please. The results of this project was, I mean, the main one for me as a teacher was to see that they could learn the vocabulary and context, because the main point in here was that they could develop or that they could explore their field in English, right? As a communicative field. I apply, can you please click again on the slide? Thank you. So I applied a survey and an interview to the students. And they mentioned that they felt very proud of themselves because at the end they felt a little bit nervous because they didn't know how were they going to manage all the process of learning vocabulary, because it was also a quantitative part because of the grades. But at the end they mentioned that they felt proud of themselves because they learned the words, they learned the concepts, they met the challenge, and of course they obtained very good qualitative and quantitative learning results. Also, they liked this activity because they developed their memory. So we know right now all students are on their cell phones, they don't remember even like a telephone number. So they like because they develop a lot their memory. and work on our language skills as a whole. Also, they found this activity as a productive because they learned many words together with their concepts, which was going to be helpful for their academic and work context. Also, they found this activity interesting because they didn't memorize the vocabulary with their meaning, right? They could really learn the words in a real context, and we know that it will be difficult to forget, as it happens in many traditional activities for learning vocabulary. My role as a teacher was just as a guide, follow the process to give them the activities, to show them resources that they could explore in the future, not just to learn vocabulary regarding their field, but also any type of vocabulary that they want to learn. So in conclusion, as a teacher, I could say that we need to be creative, organized, and the most important part is to, as some of my colleagues have already mentioned, to think always in our students' need, because each group of students that we receive kind of at the end of the year or the semester is completely different. And of course, after the pandemic, it's a little bit more, we need to think more about that. So let's kind of enjoy the process. I hope you can read more about my lesson plan in the book. And that's it. I'm going to show you a video. This is a short sample of 1-minute video of a student doing the vocabulary challenge. So we can go and click on play, please. Yeah, so there is a square kind of under the evaluation part, evaluation image. If you click on there, you can find the video.
Urton tiendas, witness, testigo, evidencia, TIF,
So if you want, I can share my screen if it's better. If not, I mean, not a whole issue, but it's fine. It was just a student doing the challenge. I mean, a 1-minute video, but I know we are rushing on time. Yes, I am going to share the link. It is on a Drive format, so I will share it, and then you can enjoy it. Thank you so much.
Urton tiendas. al juicio todo lo agravio. Hurto en tiendas, witness, testigo, evidence, evidencia, TIF, ladrón, brief, informe, offense, delito, trial, juicio, todo lo agravio. Abrogate, revocar, mandatorio, obligatorio. Además de divertido, fue productivo, porque cuando vuelva a encontrarme nuevamente con esas palabras, estoy seguro de que las recordaré, porque en realidad esa forma de interactuar con ellas a través de un ejercicio dinámico y luego la competencia reto, ¿verdad?, que hicimos en la clase, influyeron de forma significativa para que las recordara y pues para que me apropiara de ellas.
Lo que más me gustó de Vocabulary Challenge es que en realidad es un challenge personal, integral, y que permite aprender muchas palabras en mi caso del derecho, que van a ser de mucha utilidad y van a generar una ventaja profesional sobre otros profesionales por el conocimiento de otro idioma.
Thank you everyone for listening to me.
Okay. On behalf of all the teachers and attendants to this event,
Now
I
I
would like-
guess we will have final talk that will be conducted by Professor Nicolas, and we would like to know your impressions and your insights regarding these questions, dear co-authors.
Good. So on behalf of all the teachers and attendants that we are in this event, I would like to thank all the authors for sharing all their impressions, all their process and the proposals, their research process that were carried out with a rigorous manner. And I would like to ask all of these authors this question: do you consider research is vital for English teachers, and why, especially nowadays in our world, in our globalized world? So any teacher would like to start, any of the authors? Viviana, Alba, Marcela.
Yeah, sure. I can start.
Good.
Okay, well, I strongly believe that research is not just important, it's a priority for all of us as teachers. It doesn't matter what we are teaching. And it is important because of three main reasons. The first one is because when we research, we are promoting learning outcomes and solving teaching problems encountered in the classroom. The second one could be that we are employing collaborative research because we are teaching in all the different areas for future lawyers, architects, psychologists, engineers, and well, the list can go on. And for third, because research helps to create a thriving teaching learning atmosphere. As I said in my presentation, the FIAT, ICTs, research, teachers, education, this is a cooperation that we need to have all the time, not just between the EFL teachers, but also between the other teachers, because we need to start thinking about in a more holistic way and in the interdisciplinary way.
Thank you, Professor Viviana. I think it's your mention and your conceptual introduction of ICTs in this research process, I think is very relevant to what we're going through. Any other author would like to comment to continue with their impressions on this question?
Yes, I would like.
Go
Yes.
ahead, go ahead.
Okay. No, sorry. Well, I think that by doing research, students can develop professionally and personally first. Second, teachers tend to believe that they are practitioners and they think that doing research is in a different level, and that's not true. Everybody can do research. Everybody can go for creating, developing, adding knowledge to our field. So that's why, yes, I consider doing research is vital in our field. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation and the reflection about or Jenny.
Yeah, I guess it was Daisy first, but I can go. It's fine. Well, so I guess this question is important. It is essential to do research because it goes beyond giving a content or try to teach something. Is to know ourselves, our identity, and of course to know how our students perceive themselves and also perceive us as a teachers. And also research can help us to understand what works and what doesn't work in our classes in a short term and also in a long term, and how we adapt, readapt, how can we innovate in our practices. So I guess it's a must in our daily work. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Jenny. Carolina, Teacher Carolina, please.
I would like to give the floor to Daisy first, because I
Okay.
think
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Caro. Thank you. Okay, I would say briefly that yeah, research should influence teaching, sorry, and vice versa, because we should be aware, right, of that using data and research that other colleagues have worked on or conducted is part of our natural process, I would say. And that that literature that it has been created will help me, will help us to make better decisions, to question my teaching practice, and to improve something that maybe I'm not doing well. And also, I would like to add some words to what Professor Araceli mentioned. I think we can contribute. Sometimes we think that only a person who is an expert or who is a PhD should conduct research, and I think it's not true. This is the first time I'm collaborating and with a chapter in a book, and it's been an awesome path, an awesome challenge. And I think it's interesting if I am on the other side, if am I conducting research, it means I'm learning about a specific topic from various perspectives. I'm working on one of them. And in that line of investigation, I can contribute to other colleagues out there who may need or relate to what I'm facing, what I'm doing now in the classroom or at university, right? So yes, I do agree. I think we as professors, teachers, instructors, we should contribute to this EFL literature and spread our teaching experiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. It was very interesting to reflect on research is not only for PhD, for people that are only specialized in that part of teaching, but it's a process that must start from the very early stages of teaching. And that's thanks for that reflection. Teacher Carolina, now we go with you, please.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll just continue Daisy's idea. If doing research is vital for English teachers, absolutely. We need to professionalize our job. You know, like I was having a conversation with a former student the other day, and he said, the perception that the people have of me at the school is that I'm just the English teacher. You know, like I don't know anything about any of the hardcore stuff. I don't know anything about science. I don't know anything about math. I don't know anything about social studies. I'm just the English teacher, as if it were, you know, as if it were second, like, I don't know, a different kind of subject. I think the role of the English teachers has shifted, and actually that's something that I have discussed in my chapter. And it is, we are no longer language instructors in a world of Duolingo, in the world of Open English, and in the world of all these technologies that are available to students at the click, in their phones. They have a teacher in their pockets. So we have to shift our roles. And one of the ways in which we can contribute greatly to the profession is by doing research, is by analyzing what happens in our classrooms, is by extending these experiences. And yes, we contribute with what we saw in our own settings, but this can contribute to other professionals to either do the same or either be inspired. And another thing is that teachers work really hard. And as I don't remember, sorry, I think it was Mariana who pointed out that the research is done by the PhDs. And it is because of the load. They have load reduction teaching load reduction in order to research. And teachers in the classrooms are the ones living in the real laboratory. So I think it's the mission of the universities to join teachers at schools, to stop making decisions from desks and to really involve the teachers who are living the situations with the students, who have 45 kids in the classroom, who have all these variables that are so difficult to control, have them involved in the conversation. So I absolutely vouch for that collaboration between university professors and school teachers to make projects that are realistic and that really bring ideas that can be extrapolated to all the contexts. So yes, definitely, it is vital for our profession. Thanks.
Thank you, Teacher Carolina, for highlighting the transformation of the role of the teacher, especially during these times of technology and the heavy use of technology in sessions and classes and in the everyday world. Now, I would like to give the light to Teacher Alba.
Yes. Well, actually, it is very important for English teachers to research. And sometimes it seems that this is a very difficult, like it is that you need to study a lot, that you need to have a lot of background in order to do research, but that is not the case. Actually, for me, this is like one of my first experiences in research. And although it is hard work, although you have to work extra time, to come to this final result is what you should be aimed for, that you can share your ideas, that you can nurture our field, and most importantly, is that we start constructive local knowledge. Most of the knowledge of the language teaching of the field comes from America, comes from Europe, but there are few researchers and few theories that come from our context. So I encourage everybody here to start researching, and you can start with something just like me. I started with a reflection, and then start looking at some of the problems that you encounter every day, and focus on that, and you can start continuing. And as Professor Karina mentioned, it is very, Professor Viviana, start collaborating with other colleagues, not only the English teacher, but also with other careers.
Thank you, Teacher Alba, for sharing your impressions on the process of research and those suggestions that you shared with us. And that takes me to the next question, which is about your insights on the process of research itself. And the question is, can you tell us about your experience writing your book chapter? How was it? It was hard work, as Teacher Alba said. Definitely, research is hard work, but what are your personal insights on creating, this process and doing this writing process? So, Teacher Viviana, could you please start? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that every experience for writing starts by curiosity, because many of these activity has to be with our needs, passions, ideas, and these things that are happening in our daily professional life. We are teachers. We are connecting with human beings, with people. And there we have many different needs and ideas and forms to do the things different. In today's world, education has changed a lot. The way that we learn has changed, but the way that we've been taught, teaching is like, how are we doing things? And regarding this question, this experience has been to me like a mirror, because I had to face many different challenges using the ICTs and how to connect with people. So that was my experience. And about the tips for academic writing, I think that I just have one. And stop thinking that writing is a product. This is a process. Somebody has to feel something else. It is always something new, even more. It is something that you will think that, oh, maybe that was not a good idea. So this is a process all the time. This is a book, this is a product, but the writing process continues.
Thank you, Teacher Vienna. It was interesting to listen to your insight on the process, and especially the invitation of curiosity to reflect on what we are doing as teachers. Thank you. Teacher Carolina, please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, this is a question that comes to my heart deeply because I am in love with academic writing. Crazy person, yes. And the thing about something that calls my attention in this book is that we are all women. I just want to say that it's I think that deserves an extra applause because we included writing into our, I don't know, I'm a mom. I'm sure some of our other co-authors are also mothers. We are mothers, daughters, psychologists of our students. We do so much. And definitely this is proof, dear writers in progress, that you can do it. You know, that's the first thing, is to think about how you prioritize writing and how you prioritize not the writing of a book chapter, but how you prioritize your message. Your message needs to be out in the world. The way that you see things can contribute to other people. And it's not being a show off or being cocky or saying, oh, I am the best. No, it is, I went through this. I went through this exercise with my students. I helped my students. Why not sharing that message with other teachers who might want to know how to do things better? So definitely, I think prioritizing writing is important for us educators. We don't have time, and that's a given. Educators, we're always grading, we're always marking, we're always planning, we're always dealing with parents, dealing with things. You know, there's so many things going on. But the only way that we will extend our message to the world is by writing it. So that is one of the tips that I have. And another of the tips is done is better than perfect. We academics, we writers, we are perfectionists, and we want to just wait until it's all beautiful and perfect before we let it go, and it will never be perfect. We are foreign language learners, and we will be forever. We will always have little things here and there, and definitely we will always make mistakes. So just let it out into the world. You will correct it later. You will have reviewers, you will have readers. And whenever the product is published, you will find mistakes. I was rereading my chapter and I'm like, man, there were mistakes. Okay, whatever. You know, that is always going to happen. But at least you have your message out there in the world. And I think this is not a promotion of mediocrity. It's a promotion of your voice out there in the world. Perfection doesn't exist. Excellence does. And excellent teachers share with others, right? And the experience about writing the book chapter, it was amazing. Thanks to Jomaira. I cannot thank her enough. She was so patient. She was always there pushing. I was a horrible co-author, I have to be honest. I would be late with things, you know, and she was always there, so patient. So definitely, Jomaira, this book is your baby. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, teacher, for especially highlighting this that this book was written by all female authors, and that's very important. It's not a fact to take for granted, and it's actually a great contribution to what it means, the role of women in academic writing in an academic world, right? It's not something to take for granted, and it's relevant, yes, especially when we're talking about academy and all these gender struggles that are not sometimes highlighted in everyday world. I think that's very relevant to mention. I would like to give the next turn to Professor Daisy, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I mentioned it when we were at Filbo in Bogota last April with Mariana and Yomaira. It was challenging since, as I mentioned, it was the first time in my case that I was writing for publishing a chapter, and I didn't know if my article was going to be accepted. I think it was also tiring. Let's be honest. It was tiring because I had to use my extra time to work on it. And as a non-permanent professor at the university in which I work now, sometimes I thought, okay, I'm doing it. I'm not supposed, or I was not supposed to report it to anyone. Still, I'm doing it because I want to challenge myself. I want to spread what I'm doing and try to find a solution to one of the uncountable challenges, situations we face at the university level when we're teaching English as a foreign language and at a public university. And I would say within the dramatic changes that our profession has been facing here in Ecuador, at least, these teacher in the pocket that Carolina mentioned previously. Okay, so it was challenging, but at the end of the day, I would say it was rewarding. That's it. Tips for academic writing. Well, I'm not an expert, but I would say that we should, or you should look for a role model that will become your mentor. In my case was and is Yomaira, Professor Yomaira. She's just incredible. And also Professor Araceli. I've been reading their contributions, and I just felt fascinated about them. And I said, okay, I want to do this. And I have the opportunity to talk to them and learn from them. So I think it's important to look for a role model. And yeah, there are fantastic women out there. And believe me, they will help you, they will guide you. And yeah, it happens in real life. It's something possible. And also be disciplined, I would say, and have short, medium, and long-term goals. Establish them clearly in a calendar and be constant in working on that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, teacher, for sharing also the other part of what involves academic writing. It's not only developing the whole text, but also what comes behind the stress and also the expectations. And that's necessary to talk about. Sometimes we do not mention this when we're talking about the academy, and it's actually really necessary. Then we're going to have the participation of teacher Jenny and then teacher Araceli. Please, teacher Jenny.
Thank you. Okay, about this question, I can say that my experience was amazing, it was very fruitful, it was rewarding. I mean, I can mention many adjectives to describe it. But as Daisy mentioned, when we were in Filbo in Bogota presenting the book, it was very satisfying to kind of to show what you do in classroom. One of you as colleagues mentioned that we as teachers are in kind of, in the laboratory, so we know our students. And sometimes when I talk to my colleagues, I tell them, you are doing great job, you are doing great activities, activities that you need to show to the world, because you can help through these activities to many teachers that are just starting in this process as I am. This is my first time kind of doing like research to write something.
for me, I'm very happy to be involved in this process, and this encouraged me to keep doing research and to show all the pedagogical experience that we do in classroom. Any tips, as Daisy mentioned, I'm not an expert, but from this experience, I can tell that the first thing that we need to do is to start writing. We will find many mistakes, not just in the language part, like when we are writing, but we learn from those mistakes. We continue to build something, and that's not just your CV, because you will be kind of recognized, not just as Carolina said, yeah, you're English teacher and that's it. Because sometimes we feel in universities, schools, in many contexts that, yeah, English is behind, and to say, if you are a math teacher or a science teacher or an engineer, oh, you are the kind of the master. But in our pedagogical work, we do many fantastic things with our students, and that's what we have at the end of the process, right? That's what we have, our baby, as you mentioned. So all the rewards kind of are for the teacher, Romaira, mainly. She was there always in the process. It was difficult at the beginning because it was kind of my first time like writing to publish something. So at the beginning, you will find that you are not going to get the first paper of the first draft kind of well done at the beginning. In this first step, you need to continue to do corrections, and so at the end, it's a very satisfactory process, and the idea is to continue to work with many wonderful women, men, because we have many teachers in different contexts that can show many wonderful things to the world in this field. So yeah, my main tip is to write, to start. That's the difficult part, because the discipline is like the exercise or the healthy habits. The hard part is to start, but then when you get in that path, you are in there. So thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Teacher Jenny, for your insights on the process and your motivation to start, to get our hands on this kind of projects. Teacher Araceli, can you please go ahead?
well, regarding my experience writing this book chapter, first, and before I met these ladies, I felt very comfortable. It was the mails and the exchange of ideas and everything was so smooth and so nice that I felt very comfortable doing this. Yes, and as Jenny was saying, the most difficult thing is to start. So any tip that we can give you is not going to be useful if you do not start writing. So the first step is to open, because now we don't write with a pen, open a paper, open a Word document, start writing. And you will always find people who help you, believe me. And especially women, I would like later to talk to Carolina, because I also do a lot of work with for women and with women. And yes, there is always a person who helps you. For example, you can create some reading or writing clubs, writing groups, and start writing and reading each other's papers. But be perseverant. Yes, that I think that is the key. Sometimes you could say, no, this is not good, or I receive a lot of comments, but this is the best way to learn. This is the best way to grow, and I think that we are here to help each other, because when you have this desire to write, to see your name on a paper, you have to do it. Yes, you have to do it. So thank you very much for having me here, and bye-bye.
Okay, I think now we're going to proceed with the questions. If there are questions from the people attending this event, if you would like to ask something to the authors and all their process that they have actually put into the work and into their production, the text that we should read, especially each one of these chapters has something special for our process as teachers. So if anyone has a question, please go ahead, raise your hand or turn on your microphone and ask your question. I guess not. I guess that the presentations and the participation have been actually quite open to everyone. So I think Teacher Jomaira, we are going to give the closing arguments. Should we proceed, Teacher Jomaira?
Yeah. Yes, please, Nicholas.
Good. So I think on behalf of the teachers and the people that were attending this event, we would like to thank each one of the authors for their process, for sharing what they did in each one of the book chapters, what they put up for doing all these things that they are presenting in this book. And we have, of course, a big invitation to each one of us to go ahead, grab the book, take the chance to explore the book, read what all these professionals, all these great academics, presented after a long and very rigorous process of research. Teacher Andrea, we're going to give the turn to the coordinator of the Languages Institute of Santo Tomas University as a closing part of this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. Yes, I wanted to again thank you for all your insights, for sharing with us not only your experiences, but all what meant to do this process. And I think it motivates most of us to start the process as well, that it is possible, even though it is hard. As you said, we always expect things to be perfect, but what we need is to start to give it a chance, and listening to you gives us the confidence that it is possible to write and to be read about everything we do in the classroom, that sometimes most of people don't know what all the good things, all the experiences, all that we can learn in there. So thank you very much. I invite all the people who join us today to check the book. It is in our repositorio, in USTA repositorio. You can download it there. It's available for everybody. So I invite everybody to give it a check to this wonderful initiative. Thank you very much. And I think we can close. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.